All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. What's going on? It's Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com. I do have Mike Johnson. He's on the line. We just had to switch to the phone. Rule number one, never freak out. There was a bit of a technical difficulties on our end, so we will make it better as we move forward. Mike, are you there?
I'm here, man. I tell you what, I think I must have used up all my good favor on my wedding weather because obviously some technical difficulties on our end. But I'm here nonetheless and ready to talk some Alabama football and appreciate everybody kind of sticking with us.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, we'll continue to move forward. All right, now, Mike, I wanted to ask you, and we were talking about it before our small hiccup. What I've seen out there from the new assistant coaches, I mean, a lot of intensity, a lot of excitement. These guys are really on the players. I mean, Sal Sinceri completely bringing it to the outside linebackers, Brian Baker giving it to the defensive linemen. How much does that come from the top, from Saban? How much is it from the coaches naturally? And how important is it to have these coaches completely fired up at this time of year?
Well, I think it's huge, man. And from everybody I've talked to that is around the program, what you hear most about the assistant coaches from last year's football team is that some of them just got flat out complacent. It's not that they weren't able to coach or didn't have good players. It's that as you move towards the end of the year, the answer that a lot of coaches had about, possible issues that they might be facing or possible issues that a team like Clemson or Georgia could bring to the table is, that won't happen to us. That's not going to happen to us. And hearing that from my perspective, as far as, a Nick Saban staff goes, is kind of shocking. And, I think that kind of takes me back a little bit to what my own coaches were. None of them were ever complacent. You always, prepared for a worst case scenario when it came to assistant coaches. So I've already seen a couple of the videos and heard from some people inside the building that there's no complacency. That's one of the big reasons Sal Sinceri is back in the fold at Alabama, is that Coach Saban knows his attitude. I mean, Steve Sarkisian, say what you want to about Steve Sarkisian as a play caller, but I don't think there's any doubt he has a little bit more of an edge to him than Michael Locksley and Brian Dable that were there before him. So there's an upgrade in those, positions of assistant coaches. I think that Nick Saban went out on purpose, tried to find guys that were very, very hungry, that were on an upward trajectory, that wanted to win a national title ring. And from everything I've heard, and you mentioned Sal Sinceri, Brian Baker, I know, is another guy, Charles Kelly. These are very, very intense assistant coaches. I can't wait to get to Tuscaloosa myself this next weekend and lay eyes on these guys and their coaching styles. But I think it's a huge deal in springtime that you have guys like it. Sometimes it takes a game week. Sometimes it takes the middle of the fall. Sometimes it comes after a loss. To have that in the first week of spring practice tells you, that Coach Saban's trying to light a fire under these guys. And listen, I'll just give one more nugget real quick. I've always said this. What is it playing under Coach Saban? How often does he yell at you? Coach Saban yells at his assistant coaches more than he does his players. He expects more out of those guys than he does his players. And, I think that's very evident when you get new coaches in the fold, and I'm excited to see what these guys are all about.
We're on the line right now with Mike Johnson, our BamaInsider.com spring football analyst. You can catch more of his coverage on BamaInsider.com. You can catch all our coverage on BamaInsider.com. Coming to you today from beautiful Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Mike Johnson just got married. Andrew Bone gets married next Saturday. And then Tony Zucalez gets married in May. So I got 3 of my guys getting married. So I'm like flying the ship solo for a couple weeks, but I feel good, feel refreshed. Clean shaven. It's a new look for me. So thank you so much for everyone hopping on the YouTube show today. Mike, while we have you on air, I have to ask you about 6'7", 360-pound Evan Neal. We've seen a small sample size. From what we've seen early on, what are your early thoughts and what impresses you most other than the fact that he has tremendous size? Because it looks like he can move a little bit. What's your early assessment on Evan Neal?
Well, it definitely looks like he can move. And, he's another guy that I've mentioned a couple of times on here. I'm going to Tuscaloosa this weekend to lay my eyes on some of these guys. We get a chance to see the scrimmage on Saturday in Bryant-Denny Stadium. He's one of those guys that I can't wait to see. And one of the things that impressed me, and you mentioned it, just a couple of snippets that we've seen from practice so far, some of the videos out there on the website, some of the videos that you yourself have tweeted. I think what's impressive, both from Evan Neal's standpoint and also from Kyle Flood's standpoint, is the base that he plays with his feet so far. I think that's one of the hardest things to coach to a high schooler coming into the program, especially a big fella. When those guys show up, they're used to, kind of keeping their feet together, kind of coming out like it's a sprinter stance, coming off the line and sprinting up to the next level or sprinting into the defensive lineman. And keeping their feet kind of in a linear fashion, and that's not going to work. You're going to have athletic linebackers like a Dylan Moses, like a McMillan. They're going to be able to swing move you and kind of put your face in the dirt. So the videos that we have seen, he's keeping a nice wide shoulder width base. He's making sure that he's staying balanced, and when those guys do move side to side, that there's something he can do about it. So that's part Evan Neal, but that's also very exciting from my perspective in terms of what Kyle Flood, the offensive line coach, is going to do for this program. And I think you see that base, you see his explosion. I think, when you talk about offensive line play, specifically for a bigger fella, too many people talk about flat backs. I want to see a flat back. Well, you want to see a flat back coming off the line of scrimmage. But once you engage a guy, you want good hand placement, and you want to be able to keep a good base. That's really what the secret to success is. So when you're 6'7", it's hard to get that flat back. You don't necessarily need it if you're Evan Neal. You engage, you get your face mask into their sternum, you get your hands inside in their armpits, and you keep a good base, and you can really drive those guys. You can control them. So seeing Evan Neal do that, seeing a big man move like that, I think he's pretty fleet of foot, like you mentioned. And also I love the fact that Kyle Flood has already made that kind of impact on this big fella, so early on in his career.
And I have to go back and continue to give props to these new assistant coaches. I mean, credit to Nick Saban at the top for getting these assistant coaches in. I mean, there's no step back. There's only a step forward with these guys. Kyle Flood doing a lot of teaching, a lot of technical work with these offensive linemen. Had an opportunity to watch them just yesterday. The guys look good. Everyone's going through drills. It's real pop, pop, pop. And I'm excited, just like you are, about Evan Neal, and really want to see how he fares as we continue to move to A-Day. A-Day is April 13th. I'm on the line with Mike Johnson, our football analyst on BamaInsider.com. My name is Kyle Henderson. Thanks for joining us for all the coverage. As you read this morning on BamaInsider.com, Avery Johnson out. On the basketball side, you can check out our coaching hot board on BamaInsider.com. If you're curious to get those nuggets, to get behind the paywall, head on over to BamaInsider.com and look for the 30-day free trial. The promo code at checkout is simply Roll Tide. My email is Kyle@BamaInsider.com. I'm going to open up the phone line in just a minute, and you can call in and talk with myself and Mike Johnson. 205-686-3604 is the call-in number. Mike, switching to the defensive side of the football, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. Who is the alpha male? Who could be that alpha male on the defensive side of the ball? We always talk about it going into the spring season. Is it an Anthony Jennings that no one really talks about him? But, he had a great season last year. Now a senior at Alabama. Is it finally Raekwon Davis? Is it Dylan Moses? Is it someone else in the secondary? Give us some guys. And how important is that to have that alpha male, that dominant player on the defensive side as you go into the spring season?
Well, when you play within a Nick Saban defense, when you play for an Alabama defense, and Lord knows that the defenses in the last 10 years really have set the tone for this football team, and that's what you need. You need a tone setter, and many people look at it, and obviously you want guys that are high caliber players, but you need a couple of things if you're going to be an alpha male on a defense. And first and foremost, we used to say this all the time. The alphas always are in the middle of the field. When you look, it's hard to have an alpha male. That's going to be at corner. It's kind of hard to have a defensive end alpha male. They are tone setters, but they're guys that are just getting after it. They're pass rushing. You want those guys not to think too much. You want them to just pin their ears back and go. Hey, they don't think. If you're Anthony Jennings, don't think too much about what the safety is doing and what all these guys are doing. And obviously, you're going to have your cues that you have to take, but just go rush after the passer. So you look up the middle of the field, and you also need something else. You need somebody that has had some playing time. I used to get the question all the time, Kyle, going through, draft, prep and meeting with NFL teams. Do you think you could be a leader as a rookie? And to me, that's kind of a trick question. You have to be able to learn from some of the older guys when you are a rookie, when you are a freshman, when you are a first-year starter. So to me, that narrows it down to a few answers here for this question. I think you're going to see a Raekwon Davis as an alpha guy. I think he's definitely a tone setter. He plays in the middle of that defense. He can really be a game wrecker when it gets down to it. And I think in the back end, Xavier McKinney, a guy that has seen a ton of playing time, really a tone setter, can fly around and really thump, can be a ball hawk at times, can make plays on the ball, can confuse the quarterbacks with what defenses are running. But to me, the answer stops and starts with a guy like Dylan Moses. And I know that's going to be, for a lot of people, that's going to be the simple answer here. It could end up being a guy like Joshua McMillan, who has been in the program for a while. I still look to see what that starting role, the linebacker setup will be. But Dylan Moses, who now has some playing time under his belt, who's now a couple of years removed from high school, who now really is the trendsetter on that defense and will be the guy making the play calls. He's already leading his lineup in terms of the linebackers. We already know he can play. We already know he can move well. Now can he just take that next step to where he knows everybody else's job, not only his own, knows everybody else's job. And I think if he does that, then you're looking dead at an alpha male. I think he's the easy selection, for what you want, what Nick Saban's going to look at right there in the middle of this defense. So I think that's probably the easy answer. I would pick all three of those guys right up the middle, though. Raekwon Davis, Dylan Moses, Xavier McKinney as guys that I'm really, really excited about. And I think if they can, kind of be a three-headed monster there in the middle of that defense and kind of all lead their position groups, boy, this could be a really, really good unit when we get to the end of the season.
We're on the line with Mike Johnson, our BamaInsider.com football analyst for the springtime. My name is Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com. You can follow all our coverage on BamaInsider.com. Again, thank you for being a subscriber right here on our YouTube channel. We got tons of content, fresh highlights from Alabama's practice, Nick Saban press conference. You want it, you got it. We got coverage on the website. Jordan Harper, Tony Sakalas, Andrew Bone, also part of the team. I'm going to open up the phone lines right now, and I want to get your calls. I want to hear from you. I want to get some spring ball questions, and you can relay those to Mike Johnson, our football analyst. Give me 1 second while I open up the line. Now, Mike, I wanted to ask you this particular question. It's something that really stuck with me since the last time we talked about. You told me that it's very important to have a running back that can bring another dimension to the game. You have your big physical backs like Najee Harris and Brian Robinson, right? Guys that can carry the entire load. But you need somebody who can add another dimension. And I've really seen something from Tre'Davious Townsend. I don't know if you guys saw, but in the last video clip I added, he's working with the running backs. We've seen him work with the DBs. We've seen him work with the wide receivers. Nick Saban even agreed that he's looking good out of the backfield. Why is it important to have somebody that can add that other dimension? And can you kind of just elaborate on that from an offensive perspective? And are you excited to hear Tre'Davious' name in the running back fold?
Well, it's interesting you bring up Nick Saban too, because he's made comments that they are looking for depth at that position. And he even said, we're going to have a couple of new guys that come in, obviously during the summer, that are going to have an opportunity to do that. But really, they're looking at the roster right now. And he said between Najee and Brian Robinson, they got a nice 1-2 punch, but they've got to develop some of the guys below them. And he didn't mention Townsend as a guy who has, I think the quote was, shown promise as a guy who could really step into that lineup. And listen, Nick Saban, obviously, it's no secret where I see things from, because obviously Nick Saban sees things the same way. You have to have somebody else that can step into that lineup and be a change of pace. If you don't have somebody that brings speed, if you don't have somebody that brings, catching passes out of the backfield, if you don't have somebody that is an ankle breaker, somebody that can break tackles in the open field or throw more than just a stiff arm or a truck move, then that's easier for the defense to prepare for. You don't have to prepare for anything else. It's one of the things, one of the reasons Leonard Fournette was never successful against Alabama's defense, in my opinion, is you knew exactly what was coming. It was just the Leonard Fournette show. They were going to run the inside zone, going to run the outside zone, and if you could force him to stop his feet, he didn't really have any other moves. He wasn't going to make you miss out in the open field too much. He wasn't going to throw many spin moves in. He'd throw a hurdle every now and then, but somebody that can make you stop your feet, make you think that you can, look in the backfield and say there's another dimension here. That's really where you can, make some hay. So I know that, Bama's had one-headed running backs in the past.
All right, Mike, Mike, hold on. We're going to take this call coming in. Sorry to interrupt you. Here we go.
You got it.
All right. Good evening. I guess good evening. It's already 6 o'clock, I guess. Thanks for calling in. You're on the line with Kyle Henderson and Mike Johnson. Who's on the line and where are you calling from?
Steph Stapleton. I'm calling from Selma, Alabama. I think I called last year to one of your shows, and I'm looking forward to the football season this year. It's going to be a good year. I know everybody is talking about Tui and how he how they think he's overrated and stuff, but I think that they're not giving him enough credit for what he did for the whole season. And all the way up to the championship game. And also the defense, they're talking about that too, saying that it's going to be a little lackluster. but I don't think so. I think that Dylan Moses is going to step up, and I see Jennings stepping up and showing the guys up under him that they're ready to go, and I think it's going to be a good year, and I'm looking forward to it. So.
Yeah, thank you so much for calling. While you're on the line, do you have a question for Mike? Why you got him on? I mean, you have him. You could ask it.
I'm not really. Mike, what do you think about Cahoe? I mean, everybody's talking about Cahoe, talking about his. What do you think about him and his ability to change the dynamic of the defense?
Yeah, I mean, to me, there's no question, and you guys have seen some of the same film that I have, some of the the video that we put out on Bama Insiders. I don't think that there's any question about his ability. I think you have to ask questions about some of his absences and some of the the words that he's put out on social media. But I think the one thing you don't question is his ability. And you watch him go through drills, and obviously he got welcomed back to practice after a couple of days being absent. But even being in the back of the line, being the new guy to the group, being welcomed back into practice, it's very clear to me, watching his foot speed, watching his physicality, watching him run around, that he can be a contributor to this defense. He's not somebody that, was a five-star signee and shows up and they're out of shape and they have a bad attitude. What I've seen of him on film, and I can't wait to see him in person this coming up weekend, he's a guy that really can get it done. And so it's just all going to be about mental preparation for him and whether he can overcome some of the hurdles and he's obviously got in his personal life. But when you turn the film on and watch him move around, boy, his feet move at a different speed that really you only saw from a Dylan Moses in some of those films, or you only saw from some of the elite players. So there's no question to me, can he get it done? Can he step into that role? I think Alabama's defense is a lot better with him in the lineup, but he's got to be mentally prepared for that too, and I think that's the only question out there for me.
Hey, thanks for the call, and please call again next time.
Sure will. Thank you. Roll Tide.
All right.
So
it's as simple as that. You call in, you talk with Mike Jansen, you could talk with myself, 205-686-3604. The call-in number is live. Call in, talk with us. We want to get your comments and thoughts on Alabama football as we continue to move into the spring season. Again, A-Day is upon us now, April 13th. We got another call in just like that. All right, good evening. You're on the line with Kyle Henderson and Mike Johnson. Where are you calling from, and who are we on the line with?
Hunter from Harper, Alabama.
All right, good to talk to you, Harper. What's up, man? What's your question?
Yeah. Do y'all think that our defense coming year will be more motivated after that taking that loss to Clemson at the end of the year?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. It's a question that I get a lot about motivation and about these defensive players. And, I think Alabama's dynamic is a little bit different than most of the teams when you talk about motivation. I think, unfortunately, for us, the Alabama fans at this point, sometimes your best motivation comes, after you have lost a football game or after you've been shown up. So from that aspect, I think the motivation factor will be there. But, a lot of these guys were not returning starters. Some of these guys were not on the field. I think it's going to have to come from this coaching staff, and it's going to have to come from Coach Saban to say, look, you guys don't think this can happen. And this always happens to Alabama, in my opinion, because the schedule's so backloaded, and they run into a buzzsaw at the end of the season playing LSU and playing Auburn and getting the SEC title game. But a lot of these guys will start off the season, and they'll start off the season with Duke, and they'll play a cupcake, and then they'll get, an Ole Miss game in there and some of the, easier SEC games, and then they'll start feeling themselves, and they'll start saying, yeah, we're a dominant defense, we're ranked number one. You have to be able to find that motivation apart from the Clemson game, in my opinion. You have to be able to find that motivation to be the number one defense, to be one of the best defenses in Alabama history, to be a national title defense. So from that aspect, I think a lot of guys will be motivated, but it's going to be interesting to see just how long it takes.
Yeah, that's going to come from within, too, not just apart from the game. But I think that we've seen at the end of last year sort of this team who we've been able to dominate so much of last year. And, yeah, we struggled. You've seen Mike Wilson struggle a little bit at the end of last year. And apart from some of the injuries that we had, I think these younger guys have got to realize that they've got to step up and they've got to take ownership of this team and put, like Nick Saban talked about, put back in the Alabama factor into it. And I think that's why he made a lot of these coaching changes, because he wants this to be a better team, fundamentally than what we seen at the end of last year, especially with the younger guys.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I'll just add on to what we were talking about a minute ago. For teams that when I played under Mike Shula, you had to put in that extra effort to go from good to great. You had to put in that extra level, of tenacity to go from good to great. It's not that same battle with this Alabama team. You have to put that level in to go from great to elite, and elite is what Alabama expects on the defense, and I hope that's what they can get back to at the end of the year.
Hey, thank you so much for calling in. And
thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for calling in. Please call again next time.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, that was good stuff. I think that was a good calling. Mike, we got a question on the chat box for you. Mike, what are your thoughts on Matt Womack back at the starting offensive line at right guard?
Yeah, I think that this can be a great thing. And, hearing the comments from Jedrick Wills about not only Matt Womack but Alex Leatherwood, that he feels like both of these guys are kind of in their domain. And listen, this is a position change that I made in my own career. I went from playing right tackle as a sophomore to ending my career at left guard. And it can have its ups, it can have its downs. I was a taller guy. I'm 6'6". It has its challenges when you play a smaller, compact, powerful defensive lineman to be able to get down to that level. But you also have good leverage. Once you're able to lock onto a guy, you have good leverage and you have good length. So I think that it will help Matt Womack from what I've seen. That I think Jedrick Wills and Alex Leatherwood have more elite foot speed. So I think it'll help Matt Womack kind of having those bumpers on either side of him, the center and the right tackle and Jedrick Wills, and whoever winds up playing the center. Obviously Chris Owens right now. So I think it's a good move for him. I think he has a brighter future at the guard position than he probably would have at the tackle position, just in terms of playing in the NFL. I expect big things. I'll be honest with you. I think he's a guy that everybody's watching. You're going to see guys like Evan Neal, start to push for positions. You're going to have some guys moving around before too long. But hearing the comments from some of the coaches and some of the players, it sounds like he's really settling in there at the right guard position. And I think, honestly, if Evan Neal does find a spot and you have to move Ekiyor to center or something like that, you're looking at probably the biggest offensive guard combination in Division I football. So they're going to be powerful. Everybody that I've talked to wants them to run the ball more, and that's what you'd be looking at with a Matty Womack there at right guard plugging in.
Call-in line, again, is open at 205-686-3604. Call in, talk with myself, Kyle Henderson, or Mike Johnson, our BamaInsider.com football analyst. A-Day just a couple weeks away now on April 13th, and we will be getting ready for Alabama's first scrimmage, which is coming up. We've seen 5 practices now of Alabama in the fold. Saturday, we saw a good glimpse of the running backs. I mean, Najee looks incredible. Brian Robinson looks incredible. A couple weeks ago, we got a chance to see the quarterbacks. I really like what I see from Leah, Tungo Valoa, and Paul Tyson. We got another call coming in. Here we go. All right, a name that needs no introduction. It is DJ in Ohio. What's up, DJ?
Hey, how y'all doing?
Man, thanks for calling in. What's up?
Hey, I'm really enjoying y'all show. Y'all having a great show. Like to welcome Mike aboard. And I got a couple questions. Who do y'all think would be breakout players on the offense and defensive side of the ball? And with the inside linebacker kind of being like one of the position that kind of struggled last year, what is y'all confidence level on Pete Golden developing inside linebackers? And I hang up and let y'all answer the question.
Thanks, DJ.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah, so I guess I'll just talk about the inside linebackers and Pete Golding first. And Pete Golding, in my opinion, is one of those guys I am not worried about at all. Developing inside linebackers, everybody I've talked to, including coaches that have been there, past and present, glowing reviews this guy. And he has a background at Delta State, which obviously he's not in Alabama, but I know some people that knew him all the way back at Delta State. And anytime you make the leap from UTSA to an assistant defensive coordinator or associate defensive coordinator, whatever his title was a year ago, I think you can coach. And I think that Nick Saban sitting down and watching film with you and looking at your development obviously means that you're a guy that can really move the needle. So I'm not worried about him at all in terms of these inside linebackers. I think that he will bring them along. I think that he has the right combination of, putting an arm around you and also yelling at you. And so I expect him to do very, very good things moving forward throughout the year. The second question, breakout stars on the offensive side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball. I really think offensively, a guy whose name keeps popping up, and they just kind of have to find something to do with him, is talking about Slade Bolden, right? I mean, you've already heard some of the coaches come out. I've seen some comments on the board that have talked about how good this guy has looked. And you and I kind of talked about this last time, Kyle. You talk about red zone issues under Steve Sarkisian. A guy who can kind of be a multi-tool, a multi-use tool, can come out of the backfield, can run some of these swing routes, can, run quick slants, can really break off routes in the end zone. That guy can be incredible, for your football team. So I look at him, and on the defensive side of the ball, not that he is, not a part-time starter from a year ago and getting a lot of playing time, but to me, Shaheem Carter is a guy that I can't wait to see really be a nice piece of this defense. I expect him to probably blitz more out of the position he's playing. I think he'll become a ball hawk, and I think, as he starts to learn the depths of the defense, Nick Saban will feel a lot more comfortable using him in multiple roles, and I think that's where a guy like that can excel. So I'm really, really excited to see both of those guys. I think they're niche players. I think they're, quote-unquote utility players, but both really, really seem to understand what their role can be within this football team, and I think the sky's the limit for both of them if they start to understand their place in this offense and defense.
I think for me, Mike, and good stuff, by the way, and thanks for the call in, DJ. I think for me, when you look at breakout players for the 2019 season, on offense, it's tough for me to say because I don't know. I mean, there's so many guys coming back that they're so talented. Like Mike said, I mean, Slade Bolden, to be honest, has looked fantastic. I mean, coming over across the middle of the field on choice routes, good hands, tucks it upfield. Just a very good wide receiver, and I think he's someone who's made tremendous strides year over year. I'm still curious to see who can rise up at the tight end position, someone who's honestly looked good. I know it's early, but Cameron Latou, he's someone who rep with the outside linebackers all year last year as a freshman, now getting some reps at the tight end position. I don't think he's there for certain, but Saban likes this experiment, and I do like what type of athleticism he has right now at that tight end position. On the defensive side of the ball, I think the no-brainer for the breakout player for the 2019 season has got to be LeBron Ray. He's looked fantastic. And I have to say this as well. Fadarius Mathis, LeBron Ray, and Raekwon Davis, look fantastic in that front three group on the defensive line of the ball. So excited to see what we can see from more of these guys as we move into the scrimmages and into A-Day. Going to open the call-in line once again. We'll take a couple more calls tonight on the Talk of Champions Live. My name is Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com. Call-in line is open 205-686-3604. On the line with Mike Johnson, former All-American and Alabama player with the Atlanta Falcons, recently married, and as I said, got a lot of weddings this year. I mean, Mike just got married 2 days ago. He's already back at work. You got Andrew Bone, who's getting married this coming Saturday, and then our team rider, Tony Zukalis, is all getting married. So I told Mike earlier on our show, I said, simple advice for the married. Happy wife, happy life. Call in number 205-686-3604. And, a lot of people were talking about your comments, Mike, having Jaylen Waddle. Oh, we got a call-in show. Call-in. Perfect. All right, here we go. All right, thanks for calling in. It's Kyle Henderson and Mike Johnson. Who's on the line and where are you calling from?
What's going on, Kyle? This is Jared from Buffalo, man. What's going on?
Oh, man, so good to hear from you. The Bills Mafia, man. You hanging in there?
Oh, man, we hanging in there, man. It's a celebration right now. Gronk is out. Funny story. Meet Gronk because he went to Williamsville High School.
All right.
It's a suburb in Buffalo.
This sounds
so
good.
He used to live 5 minutes away from me. But I have a question. I have some questions for Mike. Number one is how do you feel about freshman Shane Lee? How do you feel about him? Especially him adapting to the defense, and do you think that he could be a major contributor for this year?
Well, I think when you talk about a guy like that, and obviously, the measurables are there, but he's the kind of guy at the inside linebacker position where that's really, really tough to plug in early. Now, the reviews on him have been incredible. I mean, highly ranked player coming out, and you talk to anybody that's seen him, he looks the part. He's a guy that, shows up. But to me, it's just so hard at that inside linebacker position as a true freshman to kind of look at it and say, oh, this guy's going to plug in immediately. there's so much to know, and there's so many checks, and they're part of playing inside linebacker at Alabama is knowing, where your help's going to be, and knowing where you can move around to, and knowing, where the safeties and corners are going to be behind you, and knowing where, the quarterbacks are going to go with the ball. So I don't have any doubt that he's a guy that could step in when needed and make some plays and do some good things. But I honestly, in my opinion, hope we don't have to rely on him. I hope that there's somebody else that steps up that knows more about the defense. And it's not a knock on Shane Lee. It's just a feeling I have about not having to rely on somebody that doesn't know every single in and out. And it's not that it's impossible for him to learn. He can definitely learn. But, it takes some guys, 3 years to really figure out this Nick Saban defense. There's so many checks and there's so many different defenses. And he'll be a piece. Look for him to play some special teams. I can't imagine them keeping him out of the rotation. They're on special teams. But, hopefully somebody with a little bit more knowledge of the defense steps in that role, in my opinion.
All right. I have another question also. With Jaylen Waddle, I know the last 2 games, he wasn't incorporated that much into the offense. With the new offense with Steve Sarkisian, will Jaylen Waddle will he be like more incorporated in this type of offense? And will they also have some more consistency trying to get him the football?
Oh, goodness, I hope so, man. I mean, I don't know if I've seen somebody as explosive and as special as he was, going back to a true freshman season. And, there's a couple of different ways to do that. You kind of move guys like that around. There's so much talent around him that it's hard to say, what his production level will be or how much they'll incorporate him into the offense. I thought they did a pretty good job last year of incorporating him. He just kind of went away down the stretch. But he's a guy who, I've already mentioned this before, I think using him in the red zone, using him in tighter spaces, using him on the goal line, using him inside the 5, people think you need a 6'5", 6'6" kind of guy, and those guys are nice to have in running fade routes, back shoulder throws, and 50-50 balls. But give me Jaylen Waddle all day in situations like that where he can find one-on-one coverage, fake inside for the slant route, then break outside, kind of along the goal line, along the pylon. I think that's the way you'll see Steve Sarkisian try to use him. And I got to be honest with you, Steve Sarkisian, I know Michael actually did a lot of good things, was really impressed with him last year, but Steve Sarkisian has seen athletes like this and has been doing it for a long time, getting guys like that incorporated. So I'm very, very excited about it and interested to see, what he's able to do with this group.
All right, guys, that's all I got from today, guys.
Hey, man, thank you so much for calling in. Please call again next time.
All right, you're as always, man.
All right, take it easy, buddy. All right, you want to get your question answered? You want to talk Alabama football with myself or Mike Johnson? Hit us up, 205-686-3604. Getting good at that call-in number. And if you're interested to become a premium subscriber on BamaInsider.com, head on over to BamaInsider.com. Look for that free 30-day trial. Get behind the paywall. Get the nuggets. Talk with the staff on a daily basis. The promo code is Roll Tide at checkout. How'd that sound, Mike? Does that sound good? Right? Killing it. All right.
It sounds so good, man.
As we round the horn towards the end of the show, Mike, what else are you looking forward to from the defensive side? We'll talk the secondary. You got Xavier McKinney, who I don't think a lot of people talk enough about. I mean, he was the Orange Bowl MVP. A lot of people ask me about Scooby Carter, who's a freshman working in the secondary. He's looked good, by the way. What else do we need to see from the secondary, Mike? You mentioned you touched on Shaheem Carter a little bit. What else are you looking to see from the secondary as we head closer to A-Day?
Well, you and I, the first time we did the show, we talked a little bit about Pat Surtain. And I think when you look at Alabama's defense, one of the things that was the calling card on the national title teams that kind of went away last year was that Billy the ball hawk. And I think that's the simple answer here. So many times with Minka in the backfield, do we see the pick sixes? And, it was Mark Barron when I was in school. And we've seen, it seems like player after player stepping in the back end of this defense, some of the cover corners, they can turn a game on its head just by simply picking a ball off and returning it, taking it to the house, or, picking a ball off and bringing it back to midfield and flipping field position and stealing a possession. Those things can change games. Turnovers change games, and I really, really want to see this secondary be able to do that. I have no doubt that you're going to have thumpers on the back end, that you'll have safeties and star position guys that can step into the box and stop the run and play with tenacity. But I really had to see that ball hawking mentality kind of come to the forefront with some of these guys and allow them to really step into that role of guys that can not only cover, not only bat passes down, but get their hands on the ball, change the possessions and change the outcome of the game. And once they do that, and you guys have seen Alabama teams of the past, when there is a ball hawking secondary, it is a lot of fun to watch, and hopefully those guys can start to turn that corner.
Yeah, really looking forward to seeing some of these guys rise up as we move to A-Day. Remember, A-Day is a great opportunity to come and check out the Alabama Crimson Tide. Game is April 13th. You can continue to catch more of our coverage on BamaInsider.com. Mike Johnson on the line tonight answering your questions. My name is Kyle Henderson. My email is kyle@BamaInsider.com. You can always hit me up with questions, customer service questions. I wear a bunch of different hats here at BamaInsider.com. Don't forget to follow Andrew Bone, our recruiting analyst, and Tony Sukalis, who is our team writer. Mike Johnson is our special guest this springtime and has been doing a fantastic job breaking down the Crimson Tide. As I always say at the end of the show, be good people out there. Special thanks to our veterans. Pastor, certainly appreciate what you do for our great country. Mike, so great to have you on, man. Always great to rap with you. Congratulations on your wedding again, man.
I really appreciate it, man, and hopefully we can get the technical difficulties squared away next time. And it's always a pleasure chatting up with you, man. Roll Tide to everybody out there.
Yeah, no doubt. Thank you so much, everyone.